realise what whole means. It means everything on the body doesn't work.
I've learnt from them and they've created me. I'm giving back unconditionally.
Hello there. Thank you for joining us as we continue our series looking at how we as a society are dealing with the challenge of ageing and the values that influence different families' decisions. Now, some cultures believe you have an obligation to look after elderly family members. But in Australia today, expectations are changing. The old compact of care between generations is simply shifting. In this program, we look at how one faith community is looking after its elderly loved ones, coming to the end of their lives a long way from their original homes. In ancient Greece, care of the elderly was a sacred duty. In modern Greek Australia, things are much the same. The old ones are usually cared for by their sons and daughters. But when the aged need more help than their families can give, traditions have to change.
It's ingrained in us that freely you received and freely you should give. You know, you received from your parents and you should give back to them.
St Basil's nursing home is in the Sydney suburb of Lakemba. Most of its residents are of Greek background and it's run by the Greek Orthodox Church.
I think when you walk in, you quickly get a sense that it's a very different place. It's built around the concept of community and family.
Hello, Violet. How are you? Lazare?
Father Nicholas Stavropoulos is the priest at St Basil's and CEO of the nursing home.
We have different meals and activities that are familiar and comforting to the Greek residents and to their families too. They come here and they're perfectly fine because they've come home.
Mary Pappas is the only child of Greek-born parents. Her mother, Anastasia, has lived at St Basil's for the last 4 months.
Bravo. Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss. Mum, on the island of Rhodes, everyone was taught a trade or learnt a trade. And Mum learnt to be a seamstress. And when she came out here, she became a seamstress and a designer. And what she does these days is, of course, she's reverting back her memory to when she was a seamstress, and she folds things. She folds things, she tears things, she joins the corners up, she aligns edges up. Mum's Parkinson's started about 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I remember her saying, look, when I scratch my head, my leg moves as well. And we thought that was hilarious. Until later, then we found out that she had Parkinson's, and of course it all made sense, and all the strange things that she was saying and doing with the dementia as well. That started about 1 or 2 years after the Parkinson's.
At first, Anastasia stayed at home, looked after by her husband James, until he could no longer manage.
The situation was that I had to go up and help Dad 5 days a week to help Mum, because we used to lift her in and out of bed and toilet her and all those usual things that you do with caring for a loved one when they can't care for themselves. And then Dad became sick. And as he became more and more unhealthy, I was looking after both of them 5 days a week. And what's like age?
Now both Mary's parents are in care. Her mother at St Basils and her father James in hospital across town, recovering from heart surgery.
Now I realise what all means. It means everything on the body doesn't work.
James has led an energetic life. He came to Australia in 1954 in pursuit of Anastasia. They married and started businesses: a clothing shop, a cake shop and a restaurant.
They went through a lot. They worked very hard. They came to Australia for a new beginning, not knowing what to find out here and not knowing the language. And they established themselves very well, but a lot of hard work went into it. I've learnt from them and they've created me. And every day I was reminded that everything was done for me to help me achieve my goals in my life. I'm giving back unconditionally.
Greeks come here when they're unable to have their needs, their aged care needs provided in the community. And generally in the community means at home by their family. The high care people have usually been looked after at home and have reached end of life period, and their care needs are so high that they cannot be provided for under normal circumstances at home.
Dimitri Piglia is 75. He's had Parkinson's disease for the last 25 years.
Hey Dad, yeah, I'm here too.
Now he lives at St Basils, where his son Bill, daughter-in-law Chrissy and their 3 children are regular visitors.
He's been here for about 8 years or so. We try to come here as often as we can, generally about, unfortunately it works out to about every fortnight or so. We used to try to make it every week, and we still do try, but all these other commitments get in the way too. But yeah, we try to make the family trip.
You always get a smile out of him whenever the kids come in. Actually, more of a smile out of him when my wife and kids come in with me. He always looks past me to see where's the kids,
Alexandra, Dimitri's wife, visits her husband almost every day.
50-50, because sometimes in the morning I feel not bad, in the afternoon more good, change.
Dimitri came to Australia in 1963 and married Alexandra the same year. He made his living as a cleaner, while Alexandra worked in factories and as a machinist. They had 3 children, and now that there are grandchildren, visiting time's a real family affair.
I think he enjoys it. I think he needs it. I think that it makes him still feel like he is part of a family. I think he'd find it difficult. He doesn't like it if we haven't been for a while. When I had baby Michael, I couldn't come for a little while, and when I came, he kind of gave me this look like, you've been away. And then when we got the baby that time as well, he looked at me, all was forgiven, it was fine, but it was, you've abandoned me for a while. And so he feels it, he wants his family around him.
How are you?
Since Dimitri's illness, Bill has looked after his mother. 5 years ago, in the Greek way, Bill, Chrissy and their family moved in with Alexandra.
Traditionally, in the Greek culture, you'll find that there's 2 schools of thought. One is that the sons look after the parents, and the parents always go live with the son, generally the eldest son.
I kind of got used to the idea from many, many years ago, because my father was sick for many, many years ago. So I was only 12 or 13 when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So it was sort of, responsibility was slowly thrown my way. So I kind of got used to it.
The decision to move in was made really when Bill's dad went into the nursing home. And Mum was by herself in this house. We were living elsewhere. We just had Alexandra. And she was lonely, and it was hard. It's hard for one person to have the upkeep of a big house with big property, lawns and everything. We needed some more space, and we made the decision that let's fix the house up, move in together. I remember when you told your father that we were going to move in, he wasn't talking too much, but he actually took this big sigh of relief that it was a load off his mind, that his wife wasn't alone anymore, and she was going to be surrounded by family and people that care and love for her. And because he was worried about it, it was something weighing on him. And then when we finally did move in and we brought him home when it was finished, his chest swelled out with pride. You know, looked at Bill and he was patting Bill, and it was really, it was something special to see.
Husband and wife Chris and Leah F. Stathakis have their mothers at St Basils. Both are in Lorantos, the low-care area of the home.
I'm a 1918 born.
1918 born. You're 90?
1918.
No, you're 92. The interesting part about she remembers her youth to the day with details. Her youth is incredible. Things that happened last week or a couple of days ago are not that current in her mind, active in her mind, but the past is there.
Fotini Theodoro is Greek-Romanian. She worked in a factory after coming to Australia in 1961. Before moving into Lorantos, she lived with her son until failing eyesight meant she needed greater care. Fotini is now 85% blind.
Yes. Me and my family. We've talked and we decided that that's the best thing to do.
Because especially when you have your stomach,
at home is very hard.
Very hard.
People are coming into aged care, into low care, for instance, just for some respite, and realising this lifestyle is much better than what I have at home. At home, I'm stuck there watching a Greek television channel. Here I have people. I can have a chat with someone. I can go for a walk. We take bus trips, and they don't want to go home.
She was never a person that could stay in the room and concentrate. She wanted to go out, talk to people, listen to others, turn around and say, you know what, today I find that I'm better than the others because of ABC.
While his mother-in-law gets out and about, Chris's mother prefers her room.
You met Antonia?
Though she's still mobile,
she's 86.
86-year-old Antonia has dementia.
Now. Mum is a long-time resident of this facility. She's been here for 6 years, going on 7. Mum is a very determined person. When she came to Australia, she knew, of course, her native languages of Italian and Greek. She knew Arabic because she was born there, but she knew French because she was educated in French. She didn't know English. She put a resolution, I must learn the language. She had a teacher, and she learned English. And she was always independent. She liked to go out and do the shopping on her own. And she was able to converse, to listen to the movies. Come on, Mum, eat this. And so she was a fairly self-sufficient person. But as you can see, times take its toll. Mum is not what she used to be. Although at heart, she's still a lovely person. Mama?
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. Nice?
As her condition deteriorates,
okay.
Antonia is starting to lose some of the 5 languages she once spoke.
As someone ages, they do lose obtained languages that they took on in later life. So in our case, someone who may have spoken English quite well as an adult, who came to Australia as an adult, loses that as they reach their end of life, especially if they're dementing. And it's critical for them to be cared for by someone who speaks their language.
All the girls there, whether they're Greek or not, speak Greek, understand Greek, which is fantastic also. And it's like just walking into Greece. It's wonderful.
At St Basils, everyone helps out. Visitors are part of this community too, some spending all day close to their loved ones, comforting them, and other St Basils residents, whose grip on life is becoming weaker.
They can still feel, I'm sure, they have that spiritual connection with everybody.
But I think central to the whole thing would be the spiritual life. You see the chapel is at the centre of the architecture, but that's because it's at the centre of life here. People that I will visit in the dementia ward who may not even recognise me as a priest, and I'll say, you're my son, or you are, where's your sister today, and things like that. So they're clearly not even recognising the priest in front of them. They come into the chapel, and the rich sensory stimulus in the Orthodox church service, which includes incense and bells jingling and icons and the priest wearing colourful clothes and chanting, all that combined wakes them, for want of a better word, out of their dementia momentarily. And we see them participating in the service. They're listening, they're chanting along with familiar hymns. They're making the sign of the cross at the appropriate time, showing that they are really linked into what's happening. And then they leave and they're back to being who they were before.
No matter how caring, a nursing home is no family home. Despite failing minds and bodies, the residents of St Basils need their visitors to keep them close and connected to family. Anastasia has her daughter Mary, but she hasn't seen her husband since he was hospitalised. Now he's back on his feet. James is coming to St Basils, and not just to visit.
This first time in the car, after 7 weeks.
He'll be there for 2 weeks of respite care.
Because I'm happy I'm going to see my wife. I haven't seen her for 8 weeks. And because of dementia, she might forget me, I took her on the phone and says, I love you, I love you. I love you too, she says. And then she starts.
Getting excited.
I want to see my wife. I haven't seen her for so long time. To see my wife, it was emotional because I haven't seen her for about 8 weeks. In the beginning, she was doubtful. And then I kissed her, she kissed me back. And I thought she understood.
Long-term plan, I'm hoping that Dad agrees with me, would be to for him to move close to Mum and be with Mum, whether it's the hostel or the villa for over 55s or the garden unit. somewhere close where he can actually walk, perhaps to give him some exercise, or drive a short distance. Seeing them reunite at St Basils was just magnificent. It was beautiful.
Hello, Dimitri. How are you? Good? You good boy to die? Yes. And Dimitri's very good boy. What's wrong, Dimitri?
Alexandra sees her husband Dimitri at St Basils each day. But at night she's in her own home, under the same roof as her son, his wife and their children.
It gets hectic in here, noisy, and then we've got the days where it's just fabulous, where, you know, Mum's baking bread and Alexandra's sitting there watching, and Dimitri's stealing a piece of the dough, and Michael's going, me, and that's a special moment to see. Sorry. That's kind of what it's like around here.
To be honest, I have been restricted in a few ways. You know, I mean, you can't pick and choose where you want to live at this stage, because you've got to keep everybody happy. We've got to be, close to where my father is. I've got to keep my mum happy by keeping the same sort of address, and
we've got to also be careful. If we're going to plan a holiday, we've got to make sure that someone's available to my mother-in-law, whether it's my sister-in-laws, whether it's, someone else. We know that someone's around to be there if they need, and we try not to go too far.
For Fatini, there's no returning to the domestic life she once knew. There's little doubt St Basils will be her last home.
There's times when she's very proud that she's 92. There's times when she turns around and says, why am I here? What's the purpose of being alive? And you have to turn around and say, well, Mum, unfortunately it's out of our hands.
Chris's mother, Antonia, is not so troubled by the dilemmas of age.
My mum, in a way, she's lucky. She doesn't have to think about tomorrow. She thinks about now, the moment, which is fantastic to be. I wouldn't like to be like that, but she seems to be contented. This is one of the saddest thing that anybody will have to cope with their parents. When you know the way they were, vibrant, strong, determined, driven, and all of a sudden you see them with nothing to live for, basically. We're doing the best we can with what we've got. And we're very thankful that we both have our mums still. Not everybody can say that, so.
As an only child, Mary Pappas sometimes worries what would happen if her parents no longer had her.
I have discussed it many times with Dad about what would happen, if I... what's that saying about if I go before him, or if I mentally go before him, to pull the plug, and he agrees, vice versa, that if anything happens to his mental state, he would like and I said, Dad, but I will go in for murder if he wants to be euthanized. Doesn't seem to mind that I go in for murder. No, joke.
I think we've said for ourselves we'd love to later on move into a retirement community.
Yeah, I'm always thinking about if I could plan my retirement to move somewhere where I could be looked after without being a burden on my kids, that would be probably the best way to get around it.
But that being said, I'd love to know that my children have that sense of community where they want to be with their family, not necessarily living with us, but at least being in constant contact, still being a family. I don't want it to scatter, to the four winds.
Kalimera, πώς πάτε? Bravo.
What I would like for my end days, I haven't considered it, no. Living on a mountain somewhere. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I read a poem once about eternal youth, that when we're young we think we live forever. And I'd probably fall into that category. Our Archbishop talks about the ageing process as bells. He uses the metaphor of bells, and he said, when I was young, they were jingling, little bells jingling. He said, now they're big cathedral, bells pealing, and I can't ignore them anymore. So I'm still hearing the jingling bits.
At 84, having survived heart surgery, James knows he won't live forever. But he's hoping to live his last years in his own way. The big question for him is where to live. After a 2-week trial, he's not ready to move permanently into the low-care hostel at St Basils.
He loves being with Mum, and he loves, fussing over her, which they both used to do with each other. He's quite keen to go home, quite keen to go into his own environment and settle in and start doing his routine again of his health, exercise and his medications and just being in control again, because he's a bit out of control at the moment. He thinks he's out of control, and he'd just like to be in control again and run the household and go and visit Mum as many times a week as he can possibly make it. What about Mum?
Of course.
Come and visit her when?
Of course. I come Mondays and Fridays to visit her. And if I can, maybe Wednesdays.
You're going to drive yourself?
Of course, I got to drive.
Good.
I'm driving since I was 14 years old, trucks. For the whole country. Of course it's difficult. Everything is difficult on a 94-year-old man.
Right, Dad? How do you feel about going home? You happy to go home, though, in your own home?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Yeah, don't cry, Bar.